Hello, it's Sarah from Hardcover Hearts, and I'm here with my week of reading wrap-up. This is where I talk about the books that I read this week, what I'm currently reading, and potentially could read next week based on my mood. So, had an okay week, was very busy at work, and so didn't get as much done as I would have liked, but I'm also juggling a lot of in-progress books, so I can only make incremental gains in each of them. So I think that's holding me back a little bit. I'm hoping this weekend to kind of clear the deck a little bit more. But let me get into it, and I can tell you what I did read, because I read some phenomenal books. So the first book that I finished was the next in the Verity Kent series. So this is a cozy mystery series set in post-World War II, like right after, as the dust is settling from World War II. This book is called A Pretty Deceit by Anna Lee Hoover. I enjoy this series. Verity Kent as a character is really smart, very compassionate, but also really wants to do the right thing and wants to be a good friend, a good partner, a good wife to her husband, Sidney. This is kind of like Downton Abbey meets Bletchley Circle. So she was a spy. Her husband actually was away at war. He has found out since that she was a spy, and so there's certain things that she can and cannot tell him because of legal reasons. And they together are trying to help one of their friends who found out that his father was involved in some nefarious dealings during the war. And so they're trying to help him understand exactly what did the father do so he can make reparations, so that he can try to prevent anything further and just kind of put that to right. And they also are aware that there is a shady character that probably has been diverting some funds and diverting some arms to the Irish for the Irish Rebellion. So there's always a lot going on in these, but it's very well done. All of the storylines are intricately woven. In this case, we have a little bit of her family backstory in that she's called to go to see her aunt. Her aunt has a mansion that was kind of repurposed for a serviceman because there was an opportunity for an airstrip near there. And so she's just enraged at how her ancestral home was treated and wants some kind of support and help from the War Office to make the repairs needed. And while they're there, they find some clues to something that looks like a family matter, but ends up linking to this broader conspiracy that they're trying to solve. So, as I said, this is a really fun series. I use these as palate cleansers between kind of headier books that I read, and I really enjoy that. So that was the fourth of that series. I'll look forward to new, and I think it was just released because I got it from my library. Then for Nonfiction November, I'm doing much better on Nonfiction November than I am on Novellas in November. These are my list here. With Nonfiction November, I had mentioned in my last video that I was just really obsessed with Virginia Woolf right now. And someone mentioned this book, and it turns out that I had it in Audible. So I was able to jump on it. It's A Secret Sisterhood, the literary friendship of Jane Austen, Charlotte Bronte, George Eliot, and Virginia Woolf. And this was set up by written by Emily Midorikawa and Emily Claire Sweeney. I did this in audio, really great. It was about how these famous writers have these friendships that really propelled them, challenged them, pushed them, encouraged them throughout their writing careers. And what I loved about it was it's not that those people communicated with each other, even though some were contemporaries, but much more about some of the other writers in their milieu that pushed them. So we get a visit by Harriet Beecher Stowe in this, as well as Katherine Mansfield. Now, the Harriet Beecher Stowe, I won't spoil anything in case you don't know a lot about, but there is some juicy, really interesting aspects of of her and her writing and where her career progressed, which I found really interesting. And it kind of showed some of the challenges between these friendships. So what do you do when your friend writes something that you don't necessarily agree with or think was well done, or even well conceived as a tome. So really great. I thought it was fantastic. The audiobook was great. And I learned a lot. And then I think probably the highlight of Nonfiction November probably is, I knew this was great. I knew this was going to be fantastic, but I didn't know how fantastic. The Five. Untold Lives of the Women Killed by Jack the Ripper. And this is by Hallie Rubenhold. Now, this has won awards, and I should have listened. I should have known going into it was going to be remarkable. But coming out of October, this is the perfect segue into Nonfiction November. If you haven't had it on your list and you're thinking about teeing that up next year, this is a fantastic way to ease that transition in. This is a phenomenal deep look at the conditions and the history that Hallie was able to reconstruct over 5 of the victims of Jack the Ripper, and the detail and the records and the experiences that they led, the conditions in which they lived. So it's conditions of extreme poverty, of work, of constantly threatening on having to go into the workhouse and out of the workhouse. Rampant homelessness. What did it mean to be homeless as a woman with children who sometimes had a husband, sometimes the husbands left, sometimes they left the husbands? It was absolutely unforgettable. And there are 5 women, and I feel it's really important to say their names. It was Polly, Annie, Elizabeth, Katherine, and Mary Jane. I'll say the one that really took my fancy was Elizabeth. Her story coming from Sweden and everything that she was able to learn and adapt, and that was just her adaptability at life and her drive was absolutely remarkable. So I cannot speak more highly of it. It was fantastic, absolutely fantastic. So let's talk about what I'm currently reading. As you know, this is going to be on for a while, still making my way through Proust with Leo of A Little Book Life. We are going to be doing an in-deep conversation series about Volume 1. So stay tuned for that. Because we really want to encourage more people to try Proust. There's so much there, and it's not as scary as we thought it was going to be. It's so rich. It's rich, fantastic type of reading. The next that I'm still making progress with very slowly is A Writer's Diary. This is extracts of Virginia Woolf's diaries, and this is phenomenal, reading that with Elizabeth of Bookish North. So those are just going to continue on. Then I started Too Much and Not the Mood by Durga Chew-Bose. I can't say anything about this yet because I have my very first check-in tomorrow with my buddy reader. So hold for that, please. I did start this phenomenal book, and I'm gonna bust through this today because I can't stop reading it. This is the Ferrante Letters: An Experiment in Collective Criticism by Sharah, Chihaya, Merve, Emre, Katherine Hill, and Jill Richards. This is so wonderful. It's these 4 critics, and what they're doing is they're writing letters to each other, and so it's so fascinating because it literally is something that you would expect to come out of the pandemic, but it was done before. This was actually published in, let's see. Oh, it was published in 2020 by Columbia University Press, but I think it was published earlier this year. So this is not something that's coming out of the pandemic, but done before. And I just love the style of them taking the quartet of the Neapolitan Quartet by Elena Ferrante and really talking about each of the books and sharing observations. And it's not done as an interview. It's really done as a letter that one person writes based on something, an aspect of the book that they care about, that they want to explore more, and sending that to the others for comments and for them to respond to. Really fantastic. I'm about a quarter of the way through and I sped through it. So good. This one, Nick from Robotnik on Instagram, she had made a comment in a previous video, and just fantastic recommendation here. And then I moved to a new audiobook. I'm still very, very excited by women artists. So this is one of the themes I wanted to explore in Nonfiction November was art and women artists, and just kind of using that as a lens to go a little bit deeper. This is Broad Strokes, 15 Women Who Made Art and Made History by Bridget Quinn and illustrated by Lisa Congdon. So good so far. I'm about 3 chapters in. This is going to be a fast one. I have a feeling I'm going to finish this very quickly and then need to look for another audiobook. I always like to have an audio as I run errands, as I'm kind of stepping away from reading with my eyes and making dinner, all of those things. So as always, I'm always reading. Always reading. I'm in the shower, I'm listening to an audiobook, I'm driving, and there's an audiobook going. So this is how I do that. And then from a mood reading perspective, I did get this out of the library. This is called Mitts, and it's by Sigrid Nunez. She wrote The Friend, which won a bunch of awards recently. And this is a fictional story of a marmoset. It says, in the summer of 1934, a sick, pathetic marmoset called Mitts came to live in the care of Leonard Woolf. And so this is about Mitts's life with the wolves, which just sounds enchanting, and it's a quick little book. So kind of keeping with my theme. And you'll notice I have a lot of books here that I already teed up. I can't be trusted. I put them here, and then I'm like, I want to read this one that I don't even have, that I just got out of the library. I'm going to have some time off next week for Thanksgiving, so I'm hoping to get a little bit more reading done, and specifically kind of hit some of these novellas, because I've done really well with the nonfiction side of this month, but not as well with the novellas. So yeah, that's it for what I have going. I did want to make another plug for the seasonal quartet. I made a special video. If you haven't seen it, please look for that in my list of videos. This is the announcement of starting the seasonal quartet. So we're going to start with autumn on December 1st. I'm doing a special group. And if you are interested in joining, do not comment here. Go to that video and comment there. I will be locking that group down the very last day of November, and we'll start reading December 1st, with the first check-in being the Sunday after. So if you're interested, make sure you have a Voxer account. It's a free walkie-talkie style that most of BookTube uses to communicate and share information. Very easy and free. And that's how we'll do it. So I wanted to make sure that I let people know about that. It looks like there's a really big group, really interesting number of people who are going to be joining. So excited about that. And I think that's it for now. Thank you so much for joining. And as always, please remember, we're still in a pandemic. In fact, the pandemic is getting worse. So please maintain safe social distance, wear your masks, wash your hands, and do not touch your face. That's it for now. I'll look forward to talking to you later. Bye.